And so thank you for being here. Thank you for coming out. Saturday nights are no easy bargain with your schedule, I know, and there's so many more places that any of us could be, but I wouldn't necessarily put money on them being a better choice than this. So, yes, thank you. For your health for the future, for Gregor. Can we just do that right now? Gregor, 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 Gregor. So that's not his intro. That's not his intro. So. Introducing Dr. Gregor is a huge honor, but before we do that, actually, I gotta say that this event, as timely as it has been, is still a pretty big accomplishment to get started on time. The volunteer crew, all else except for me, is from Plant Diego. So thank you very, very much. Plant Diego, all the leadership there. Plant Diego is a local nonprofit with a dedicated mission to educate and inform people of the benefits of eating whole food plant-based lives, along with the wellness and environmental benefits of living more aware and compassionate. So I did feel like that was a good collaboration to have a part of this event. Raffles later on tonight will be provided by Soul Tea. So if you've ever had these drinks, they are amazing. And they are a local, yet really nationwide, eco-conscious living beverages company. So if you are one of the 9 people to win a cooler full of Soul Tea tonight, you will experience drinks that are definitely right on alignment with tonight's type of talk. They're rather healthy. They didn't tell me to say this, but they truly do have an awesome set of ingredients. So, Dr. Gregor, he's been an inspiration in so many ways to me. How I think, and all the way to literally how I eat. And we're all privileged to be here. Launching a new book is a big deal, especially the masterpiece. This isn't a mic, but it feels better. It's like leaning into it. So, especially the masterpiece of How Not to Diet, which has just under 5,000 citations to studies within it. It's incredible what he's done with this book. I'm excited to hear him talk about it. But before I do so, just to refresh everyone's memory of who's up on stage tonight. Dr. Michael Gregor is a founding member and fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. He's a physician, a New York Times bestselling author, multiple times over, and an internationally recognized speaker on nutrition, food safety, and public health issues. He recently gave a TED Talk. He's even been in the spotlight on the Ryan and Kelly show. But what seems to be like a great yet often overlooked moment was that he was called upon as an expert for Oprah when she was sued by some meat business group or something. So, to talk about cows and diseases or something. So, but Dr. Gregor has been paving the way in modern day communications of nutritional science, making it easy to get and enjoyable to endure. He runs, obviously, the nonprofit website nutritionfacts.org, which is a science-based public service site. And this is where they provide free daily updates on the latest in nutrition science, and it is a site that I personally treat like a Google for nutrition. Awesome videos, detailed search, the whole shebang. Please help me welcome Dr. Michael Gregor.
Good evening. So I'm amplified to this.
You're good.
Hello, check, check, check. How's that sound? Cheap seats in the back. All right. Let's rock and roll.
Put it to the test.
Exactly. Surely, if there were some safe, simple, side effect-free solution to the obesity epidemic, we'd know about it by now, right? I'm not so sure. It may take an average of 17 years before research evidence makes it into day-to-day clinical practice. To take one example that was particularly poignant for my family, heart disease. Decades ago, Dr. Dean Ornish and colleagues published evidence in one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world that our leading cause of death could be reversed with diet and lifestyle changes alone, yet hardly anything happened. Even now, hundreds of thousands of Americans continue to needlessly die from what we learned decades ago was a reversible condition. I had seen it with my own eyes. My grandmother was cured of her end-stage heart disease by one of Dean's contemporaries, Nathan Pritikin, using similar methods. She was given a medical death sentence at age 65, but after one too many open-heart surgeries, but thanks to a healthy diet, was able to enjoy another 31 years on this planet until age 96 to continue to enjoy her 6 grandkids, including me. So, if effectively the cure to our number one killer could get lost down some rabbit hole and ignored, what else might there be in the medical literature that could help my patients, but just didn't have a corporate budget driving its promotion? Well, I made it my life's mission to find out. That's why I became a doctor in the first place and why I started my nonprofit site, nutritionfacts.org. Everything on the website is free. There are no ads, no corporate sponsorship, strictly non-commercial, not selling anything, just put up as a public service, as a labor of love, as a tribute to my grandmother. New videos and articles almost every day on the latest in evidence-based nutrition. What a concept. Okay, so what does the science show is the best way to lose weight? If you want testimonials and before and after pictures, you have come to the wrong place. I'm not interested in anecdotes. I'm interested in evidence. When it comes to making decisions, is life and death important as to what to feed ourselves and our families? There's really only one question, as far as I'm concerned. What does the best available balance of evidence say right now? The problem is that even just sticking to the peer-reviewed medical literature is not enough, as false and scientifically unsupported beliefs about obesity are pervasive even in scientific journals. But the only way to get at the truth, then, is to dive deep into the primary literature and read all the original studies themselves. But who's got time for that? There are more than 500,000 studies, papers on obesity, with 100 new ones published every day. But that's what we do at nutritionfacts.org. We comb through tens of thousands of studies a year, so you don't have to. Very nice. And indeed, we uncovered a treasure trove of buried data. Like today, I'll cover simple spices proven in randomized controlled trials to accelerate weight loss for pennies a day, but with so little profit potential. Right? No wonder these studies never saw the light of day. The only profiting I care about, though, is your health. That's why 100% of all the proceeds I receive from all my books are all donated to charity. I just want to do for everyone's family what Pritikin did for my family. But wait, isn't weight loss just about eating less and moving more? I mean, isn't a calorie just a calorie? Well, that's what the food industry wants you to think. The notion that a calorie from one source is just as fattening as a calorie from any other is a trope broadcast by the food industry to absolve itself of culpability. Coca-Cola even put out an ad emphasizing this one simple common sense fact. As the current and past chairs of Harvard's nutrition department put it, this central argument from industry is that the overconsumption of calories from carrots would be no different than the overconsumption of calories from soda. I mean, if a calorie is just a calorie, why does it matter what we put in our mouths? Well, let's explore that example of carrots versus Coca-Cola. Now, it's true, in a tightly controlled laboratory setting, 10 carrots, 240 calories of carrots, would have the same effect on calorie balance as the 240 calories in a bottle of Coke. But this comparison falls flat on its face out in the real world. You could chug those liquid candy calories down in less than a minute, but 240 calories of carrots may take you more than 2.5 hours of constant chewing. It's actually been, they actually timed somebody. Okay, so not only would your jaw get sore, right? But 240 calories of carrots, that's like 5 cups of carrots. I mean, you might not even be able to fit them all in your stomach, right? I mean, our stomach's only so big. I mean, once we fill it up, there are stretch receptors in our stomach wall that tell us when we've had enough. But different foods have different amounts of calories per stomachful. Some foods have more calories per cup, per pound, per mouthful than others. This is the concept of calorie density, the number of calories in a given amount of food. As you can see, for example, oil has a high calorie density, meaning it has a high calorie concentration, lots of calories packed into a little space. So, dribbling just a tablespoon of oil on a dish, for example, adds over 100 calories. For those same calories, you could have instead eaten about 2 cups of blackberries, for example, a food with low calorie density, right? So these 2 meals have the same number of calories, right? You could swig down that spoonful of oil and not even feel any difference in your stomach, but eating a couple cups of berries could, start to fill you up, right? So that's why, yes, biochemically a calorie is a calorie, but eating the same amount of calories in different forms can have different effects. The average human stomach can expand to fit about 4 cups of food. So a single stomach full of strawberry ice cream, for example, would max out our calorie intake for the entire day. I mean, to get those same 2,000 calories from strawberries themselves, you'd have to eat 44 cups of berries. That's 11 stomachfuls, right? As delicious as berries are, I don't think I could fill my stomach to bursting 11 times a day, right? Some foods are just impossible to overeat, right? They're so low in calorie density that you just couldn't physically fit enough in to even maintain your weight, right? In a lab, a calorie is a calorie, but in life, far from it. Now, traditional weight loss methods have focused on decreasing portion size, but these kind of eat less approaches can leave people feeling hungry and unsatisfied, so they're unsustainable in the long run. A more effective approach may be to shift the emphasis from restriction to positive eat more messaging of increasing one's intake of these low calorie density foods. But you don't know until you put it to the test. And indeed, researchers in Hawaii tried putting people on a more traditional Hawaiian diet with all the plant foods they could eat, unlimited quantities of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans, and the study subjects lost an average of 17 pounds in just 21 days. Now, calorie intake dropped by about 40%, but not because they were eating less food. They lost 17 pounds in 3 weeks eating more food, in excess of 4 pounds a day. How could that be? Because whole plant foods tend to be so calorically dilute, you could stuff yourself without getting the same kind of weight gain, right? They lost 17 pounds in 3 weeks eating more food. That's why, in my new book, How Not to Diet, which I'm very excited about, that's why low in calorie density is on my list of the 17 ingredients for an ideal weight loss diet. Since Americans average about 3 pounds of food a day, I mean, if you stuck with mostly these foods, you could see how you could eat more food and still shed pounds. Now, vegetables have the lowest calorie density, and so researchers at Penn State decided to put them to the test. Study subjects were served pasta and told to eat as much or as little of the pasta as they wanted. On average, they consumed about 900 calories of pasta. Now, what do you think would happen if, as a first course, You gave them 100 calories of salad, composed of lettuce, carrots, cucumber, celery, cherry tomatoes. Now, would they go on to eat the same amount of pasta and end up with a 1,000-calorie lunch, like 900 plus 100? Or would they eat 100 fewer calories of pasta, effectively canceling out the added salad calories? It was even better than that. They ate more than 200 fewer calories of pasta. Thanks to this salad, 100 calories in, 200 calories out. So in essence, the salad had negative 100 calories. Preloading with vegetables can effectively subtract 100 calories out of a meal. That's how you can lose weight by eating more food. Now, of course, the type of salad matters. Researchers repeated the experiment, adding a fatty dressing and shredded cheese, which quadrupled the salad's calorie density. Now, eating this salad as a first course didn't turn a 900-calorie meal into one with less than 800 calories. Instead, it turned it into a meal with calories in the quadruple digits, right? It's like preloading pizza with garlic bread or something. I mean, it's just going to end up with more calories overall. Okay, so what's the cutoff? Well, studies on preloading show that eating about a cup of food before a meal decreases subsequent intake by about 100 calories. So to get a negative calorie effect, the first course has to contain fewer than 100 calories per cup. As you can see from the chart, it's most fresh fruits and vegetables, but having something like a dinner roll or something just simply wouldn't work. But hey, give people a large apple before a meal, for that same pasta meal, rather than consuming about 200 calories less, it was more like 300 calories less. Right? So how many calories does an apple have? It depends on when you eat it. Eaten before a meal, an apple can effectively have negative 200 calories. Right? You can see the same thing giving people vegetable soup as a first course. Hundreds of calories disappear. One study that tracked people's intake throughout the entire day found that overweight subjects randomized to pre-lunch vegetable soup not only ate less lunch, but deducted an extra bonus 100 calories at dinner too, a whole 7 hours later, right? So the next time you sit down to a healthy soup, you can imagine calories being veritably sucked out of your system with every spoonful. Even just drinking 2 glasses of water immediately before a meal causes people to eat about 20% less, taking in about 100 fewer calories. No wonder overweight men and women randomized to 2 cups of water before each meal lost weight 44% faster. 2 cups of water before each meal, 44% faster weight loss. But, obviously, who's going to profit from that? That's why so-called negative calorie preloading is on my list of my weight loss boosters, which is all the things I could find that can accelerate weight loss regardless of what you eat the rest of the time. Anything we can put on that first course salad to boost weight loss even further? Well, in my amping AMPK section, I talk about ways to activate an enzyme known as the fat controller. Its discovery is considered one of the most important medical breakthroughs of the last few decades. You can activate this enzyme through exercise, fasting, and nicotine. But is there any way to boost it for weight loss without the sweat, hunger, or whole dying a horrific death from lung cancer thing? Well, Big Pharma is all over it. After all, obese individuals may be unwilling to perform even a minimum of physical activity, wrote a group of pharmacologists, thus indicating that drugs mimicking endurance exercise would be highly desirable. So, it's crucial that we develop oral compounds with high bioavailability that are developed to safely induce chronic AMP activation for long-term weight loss and maintenance. But there's no need to develop such a compound since you can already buy it at any grocery store. It's called vinegar. When vinegar, acetic acid, is absorbed and metabolized, you get a natural AMPK boost. Now, wait, enough of a boost that at a typical dose you might get dressing a salad or something? Vinegar has been used for centuries for weight loss, but only recently has it been put to the test. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial on the effects of vinegar intake on the reduction of body fat in overweight men and women. The subjects were randomized to drink a daily beverage containing 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, or a placebo control group given a beverage developed to taste the same as the vinegar drink, but made with a different kind of acid, so it didn't actually have any real vinegar in it. 3 months in, the fake vinegar group actually gained body fat, as overweight people tend to do over time, whereas the genuine vinegar group significantly lost body fat, as determined by CT scan. A little vinegar a day led to pounds of weight loss for just pennies a day without removing anything from their diets. That's why one of my 21 tweaks to accelerate weight loss is 2 teaspoons of vinegar with each meal, either sprinkled on a salad or even just added to tea with some lemon juice or something. Now, the vinegar studies are nice because they were placebo-controlled. Right? That's hard to do with food. I mean, you can't stuff cabbage into a capsule, but there are some foods so potent that you could actually fit them into a pill and pit them head-to-head against placebos, and that's spices, right? Want to know if garlic can cause weight loss? Well, hey, give people some garlic powder pills versus placebo pills, and garlic worked, resulting in both a drop of weight and waistlines within 6 weeks. Now, they used about a half a teaspoon of garlic powder a day, which would cost less than 4 cents. 4 cents too steep? Well, how about 2 cents? This is a quarter teaspoon of garlic powder a day. Over about 100 overweight men and women were randomized to a quarter teaspoon worth of garlic powder a day, and or placebo, and those unknowingly taking the 2 cents worth of garlic powder a day lost 6 pounds of straight body fat over the next 15 weeks. Now, if you can splurge up to 3 cents a day, there's black cumin. Meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials shows weight loss efficacy, again, with just a quarter teaspoon a day. What is black cumin? You obviously have not been reading your Bibles, Isaiah 28:25, described as a miracle herb. Besides the weight loss, there are randomized controlled trials showing black cumin consumption significantly improves cholesterol and triglycerides, significantly improves blood pressure and blood sugar control, but I use it just because it tastes good. I mean, it's just a simple, common spice. You can put black cumin seeds in a pepper grinder and just use it like black pepper. With more than 1,000 papers published in the medical literature on black cumin, some reporting extraordinary results like dropping cholesterol levels as much as a statin drug. Why don't we hear more about it? Right? Why wasn't I taught about it in medical school? Right? Presumably, because there's no profit motive, right? Black cumin is just a simple, common, natural spice. You're not going to thrill your stockholders selling something you can't patent that costs 3 cents a day. Or you can use regular cumin, second most common spice on earth. Those acts as an appetite suppressant. Those randomized to a half teaspoon of both lunch and dinner over 3 months, lost about 4 more pounds and an extra inch off their waistline, found comparable to the obesity drug known as Orlistat. Now, for those of you who don't remember, that's the anal leakage drug that... Now, the drug company evidently prefers the term fecal spotting to describe the rectal discharge it causes. The company's website offered some helpful tips, though. It's probably a smart idea to wear dark pants to wear dark pants and bring a change of clothes with you to work. You know, just in case their drug causes you to crap your pants at work. I think I'll stick with the cumin. Thank you very much, actually. cayenne pepper can counteract the metabolic slowing that accompanies weight loss and accelerate fat burning as a bonus. Ginger powder, over a dozen randomized controlled trials, starting just a quarter teaspoon of ground ginger a day, showing significantly decreased body weight for just pennies a day, proven in these placebo-controlled trials to work, but no one's ever heard about any of this because you just can't make enough profit. Now, my section on fat-blocking foods starts out with a command to eat your thylakoids, doctor's orders. What on earth is a thylakoid? Just the source of nearly all life on Earth and the oxygen we breathe. No biggie. Thylakoids are where photosynthesis takes place, the process by which plants turn light into food. Thylakoids are the great green engine of life. These microscopic sac-like structures composed of chlorophyll-rich membranes concentrated in the leaves of plants. So when we eat thylakoid, when we bite into a leaf of spinach, those green leaf membranes don't get immediately absorbed, and they can last for hours in our intestines, and that's when they work their magic. Thylakoid membranes bind to lipase. That's the enzyme our body uses to digest fat. So if you bind the enzyme, then you slow the fat absorption. But wait, if all the fat is eventually absorbed, though, what's the benefit? Well, location, location, location. There's a phenomenon known as the ileal brake. The ileum is the last part of the small intestine before it dumps into the colon. And when undigested calories are detected that far down in your intestines, your body thinks you must be full from stem to stern and tamps down your appetite to put the brakes on eating more. And this can be shown experimentally. You insert a 9-foot tube down people's throats and drip in any calories, fat, protein, sugar. You can activate the ileal brake. Then you sit them down to an all-you-can-eat meal, and compared to the placebo group that just got water squirted down the tube, they eat about 100 calories less. They just don't feel as hungry. They feel just as full on eating significantly less. So that's the ileal brake in action. And then this can then translate into weight loss. Randomize overweight women to a diet with green plant membranes, which is a fancy name for powdered spinach. They covertly slipped them some powdered spinach without their knowledge. And what they got was a boost in appetite-suppressing hormones, a decreased urge for sweets. So you can see, here we are 4 hours in after eating some powdered spinach, and I mean, they're like, urge for chocolate. Who cares, right? Just after eating some spinach decreases one's urge for chocolate. It changes the way your brain views these high-calorie foods. And then, most importantly, we get, this then translates into boom, accelerated weight loss, all thanks to eating green. The actual green itself, the chlorophyll-packed membranes in the leaves. Now, the researchers only used spinach powder because they wanted to secretly give people, they gave people like an artificially colored green smoothie or something versus the spinach. But you can get the same amount of thylakoids that was so effective in decreasing cravings and accelerating weight loss in just a half cup of cooked spinach a day, or half cup of cooked greens at all, which is what I recommend people eat at least 2 times a day in my daily dozen checklist of all the healthiest of healthy foods I encourage people to fit into their daily routine. In the Journal of the Society of Chemical Industry, a group of food technologists argued that given their fat-blocking benefits, thylakoid membranes could be incorporated into functional foods to make new promising appetite-reducing ingredients, or you could just get them the way Mother Nature intended. Now, though thylakoids get eventually broken down, the fiber we eat makes it all the way down into the colon. And while it's technically true we can't digest fiber, that's only applicable to the part of us that's actually human. Most of the cells in our body are actually bacteria. Our gut flora, which weighs as much as one of our kidneys, as active, as metabolically active as our liver, has been called our forgotten organ. And it's an organ that runs on MAC, which stands for microbiota accessible carbohydrates. So when you see me write things like, eat lots of Big Macs, don't get the wrong idea. MAC is just another name for prebiotics, what our good gut flora eat. In other words, fiber. What do our good bacteria do with fiber? Well, we feed them and they feed us right back. They make short-chain fatty acids that get absorbed from our colon into our bloodstream, circulate throughout our bodies, and even get up into our brain. It's like the way our gut flora communicate with us by releasing these chemical mediators that get up into our brain, dial down our appetite, all the while increasing the rate at which we burn fat at the same time and boosting our metabolism, all thanks to fiber. Check this out. Put people in a brain scanner and show them a high-calorie food like a donut, and the reward centers in the brain instantly light up. But if you repeat the experiment, but this time secretly deliver fiber-derived short-chain fatty acids directly up into their rectum, you get a blunted reward center response. Subjects report that high-calorie foods just seemed less appealing, and subsequently they ate less of an all-you-can-eat meal. Now, but fiber supplements like Metamucil don't work, and that's because they're non-fermentable. Our gut bacteria can't eat them, so yeah, they can work for bowel regularity, but cannot be used by our good bacteria to make those cravings-blocking compounds. For that, we actually have to eat real food. Our good gut bugs are trying to help us, but when we eat diets that are deficient in fiber, we are in effect starving our microbial self. Less than 5% of Americans reach even the recommended minimum daily intake of fiber. No wonder, because the number one sources are legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, and whole grains. And 96% of Americans don't even reach the recommended minimum intake of legumes, and 99% don't reach the recommended minimum intake of whole grains. Most people don't even know what fiber is. More than half of Americans surveyed think steak is a significant source of fiber. However, by definition, fiber is only found in plants. Zero fiber in meat, dairy, eggs, and little or no fiber in processed junk, and therein lies the problem. Okay, but wouldn't at least the protein in that steak fill you up? Well, surprisingly, even a review supported by the meat, dairy, and egg industries acknowledged that protein intake does not actually translate into eating less later on. Whereas if you eat a fiber-rich whole grain for supper, it can cut calorie intake more than 12 hours later at lunch the next day. You feel as full 100 calories quicker the following day, because by then your good gut flora are feasting on the same bounty you ate the night before and churning out those appetite-reducing compounds to dial down your appetite. Today, even our meat can be considered junk food. For more than a century, one of the major goals of animal agriculture was to increase the carcass fat content of meat. Now take, chicken, for example. 100 years ago, the USDA determined that chicken was about 23% protein by weight and less than 2% fat. Today, chickens have been genetically manipulated through selective breeding to have 10 times more fat. Chicken Little has become Chicken Big, and maybe making us bigger too. Meat consumption in general is associated with weight gain, but poultry appeared to be the worst. I mean, even just like an ounce a day, that's like a single chicken nugget or like one chicken breast every 10 days was associated with weight gain compared to eating no chicken at all. It's funny when the meat industry funds obesity studies on chicken, they choose for their head-to-head comparison foods like cookies and sugar-coated chocolates. Of course, this is a classic drug industry trick, right, where you try to make your product look better by, comparing it to something you know is substandard. Apparently, just regular chocolate wasn't enough to make chicken look good. Okay, but what happens when chicken is pitted against a real control, like chicken without the actual chicken? Well, chickens out. Both soy-based proteins, corn, tofu in this case, and corn, which is a plant-based meat made from the mushroom kingdom, was found to have stronger satiating qualities than chicken. Feed people a chicken and rice lunch, and 4.5 hours later, they eat 18% more calories of a dinner buffet than those who had instead been given a lunch of chicken-free chicken and rice. These findings are consistent with childhood obesity research that found that meat consumption seemed to double the odds of school children becoming overweight compared to the consumption of plant-based meat products. Now, whole food sources of plant protein, such as beans, did even better, associated with cutting in half the odds of kids becoming overweight. So that's why I consider these kinds of plant-based meats more of a useful stepping stone towards a healthier diet rather than the end game ideal. And part of the reason plant-based meats may be less fattening is because they cause less of an insulin spike. Meat-free chicken like corn causes up to 41% less of an immediate insulin reaction. Turns out animal protein causes almost exactly as much insulin release as pure sugar. Just adding some egg whites to your diet can increase insulin output as much as 60% within 4 days. And fish may be even worse. Wait a second, why would adding tuna to some mashed potatoes spike up insulin levels, but adding broccoli instead cut the insulin response by about 40%? It's not the fiber, because the same amount of broccoli fiber alone provided no significant benefit. So why does animal protein make things worse, but plant protein make things better? Plant proteins tend to be lower in the branched chain amino acids, which are associated with insulin resistance, the cause of type 2 diabetes. You can show this experimentally. You give some vegans branched-chain amino acids, and you can make them as insulin-resistant as omnivores. Or take some omnivores and put them even on a 48-hour vegan diet challenge, and within 2 days, you can see the opposite, significant improvements in metabolic health. Why? Because decreased consumption of branched-chain amino acids improves metabolic health. Check this out. Those randomized to restrict their protein intake were averaging literally hundreds more calories a day, so they should have become fatter, right? But no, they actually lost more body fat. Restricting their protein allowed them to eat more calories. At the same time, they lost weight, more calories, yet a loss in body fat. And this magic protein restriction, quote unquote, they were just having people eating the recommended amount of protein. It was just restricted compared to the standard American diet. So, maybe this should have just been called the normal protein group or the recommended protein group. And the group that was eating more typical American protein levels and suffering because of it, the excess protein group. Given the metabolic harms of excess branched-chain amino acid exposure, leaders in the field have suggested the invention of drugs to block their absorption, to promote metabolic health and treat diabetes and obesity without reducing caloric intake. Or we can just try not to eat so many branched-chain amino acids in the first place. Where are they found? Mostly in meat, including chicken and fish, dairy products, and eggs. Perhaps explaining why animal protein is associated with higher diabetes risk, whereas plant protein appears protective. So defining the appropriate upper limits of animal protein intake may offer a great chance for the prevention of type 2 diabetes and obesity, but it need not be all or nothing. Even an intermittent vegan diet may be beneficial. If there was one piece of advice that best sums up my recommendations in the book, it would be to wall off your calories. Let me explain what that means. Animal cells are encased only in easily digestible membranes, which allow the enzymes in our gut to effortlessly liberate the calories within a steak, for example. Right? But plant cells, on the other hand, have cell walls that are made out of fiber, which acts as an indigestible physical barrier, and within which many of the calories remain trapped. Processed plant foods, of course, like fruit juice or refined grains or sugar, even whole grains, if they've been powdered into flour, have had their cellular structure destroyed. Their cell walls cracked open, and their calories are free for the taking. Right? But when we eat structurally intact plant foods, chew all you want, you're still going to end up with calories completely encapsulated by fiber, which then blunts the glycemic load, activates the ileal brake, and provides sustenance to our friendly flora. So, bottom line, try to make sure as many of your calories as possible, your carbs, your protein, your fat, are encased within plant cell walls. In other words, from whole intact plant foods. That's what Mother Nature intended to happen, right? Millions of years before we learned how to sharpen spears or mill grains, boil sugar cane, we evolved in the context of eating what the rest of our great ape cousins ate: plants. The Paleolithic period, when we started to use tools, only goes back about 2 million years. We and other great apes have been evolving since the Miocene era, more like 20 million years ago, right? So for the first 90% of our hominoid existence, our bodies evolved on mostly plants. It's no wonder then our bodies may thrive best on the diets we were designed to eat. So maybe we should go back to our roots. With enough portion control, look, anyone can lose weight, right? Lock someone in a closet, you can force them to lose as much body fat as you want, right? Chaining someone to a treadmill, same effect, right? But what's the most effective weight loss regimen that doesn't involve caloric restriction or exercise or a felony? Well, I have scoured the medical literature at all the randomized controlled trials, and the single most successful strategy to date is a diet of whole plant foods. The single most effective weight loss intervention like that ever published in the peer-reviewed scientific literature, a whole food, plant-based diet. That works better than anything else studied to date. And no wonder, right, given what we just learned about fiber and branched-chain amino acids, etc. Okay. Look, we've known for more than 40 years, right, that those eating predominantly plant-based diets weigh, on average, about 30 pounds less than the general population. But you don't know if it's the diet itself until you put it to the test. In 2017, a group of New Zealand researchers published the BROAD study. This is a 12-week randomized controlled trials done in the poorest region of the country with the highest rates of obesity. Overweight individuals were randomized to receive either standard medical care or semi-weekly classes offering advice and encouragement to eat a low-fat diet centered around fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. And that's all it was. Just empowerment with knowledge. No meals were provided, right? The intervention group was just informed about the benefits of plant-based eating and encouraged to incorporate it into their own lives, right? No significant change in the control group, but the plant-based group, without any restrictions on portions, able to freely eat all the healthy plant foods they wanted, lost an average of 19 pounds by the end of the 3-month study. Okay. 19 pounds, that's a respectable weight loss, right? Okay, yeah, but what happened next? At the end of those 12 weeks, class was dismissed and no more instruction was given, right? The researchers were curious to see, how much weight that the subjects then gained back after being released from the study. So everyone was invited back at the 6-month mark to get reweighed. The plant-based group had left the study 19 pounds lighter, right? But after 6 months, they were only down to about 27 pounds down. They got even better, right? The plant-based group had been feeling so good, both physically and mentally, had been able to come off so many of their medications, right, that they were sticking with the diet on their own And the weight had continued to come off. All right? What about a year later? Even studies that last a whole year, where people are counseled to stay on the diet the entire time, right? By the end of the year, any initial weight loss in the first few months tends to creep on back. The broad study only lasted 3 months, yet after it was all over, those who had been randomized to the plant-based group not only lost dozens of pounds, but they kept it off. They not only achieved greater weight loss at 6 and 12 months than any other comparable trial, that was months after the study had already ended. Whole food plant-based diet achieved the greatest weight loss ever recorded compared to any other such intervention published in the medical literature. You can read the record-breaking study in full for free at nature.com/article/NUTD2173, or you can just point your phone camera at the screen and pick off the QR code. Any diet that results in reduced calorie intake can result in weight loss. I mean, dropping pounds isn't so much the issue. The problem is keeping it off. And a key difference between plant-based nutrition and more traditional approaches to weight loss is that people are encouraged to eat ad libitum, meaning eat as much as you want. No calorie counting, no portion control, just eating. Right? The strategy is to improve the quality of food rather than restricting the quantity of food, right? So then you're not hungry. And that's a diet you can stick with. Instead, you get the boost in energy and improved sleep, improved digestion, etc. If you put people on a diet packed with fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans, that allow them to eat as much as they want, they end up eating about 50% fewer calories than they might have otherwise. Just as full on half the calories. Wait a second. How can you keep people full and satisfied cutting more than 1,000 calories out of their daily diet? Well, you do it by having people eat more. Here's cutting it in half. But you do it by having people eat more high bulk, low calorie density foods, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and beans, and fewer calorie dense foods like the meats, cheeses, sugars, sweets, fats, etc. Okay. But it may not just be on the calories in side of the equation. Those eating more plant-based appear to be burning more calories effectively in their sleep. The resting metabolic rate of those eating plant-based may be 10% higher or more, a boosted metabolism that can translate into burning off hundreds of extra calories a day more without doing a thing. Those eating more plant-based allows you to burn more calories just being alive, just existing. So no wonder why those eating more plant-based tend to be slimmer. Start packing your diet with real food that grows out of the ground, and the pounds should come off naturally, taking you down towards your ideal weight. But what about ketogenic diets? Body fat loss actually slows down when you switch to a ketogenic diet because your body starts cannibalizing its own protein. Just looking at the bathroom scale, though, the keto diet seems like a smashing success, losing less than a pound a week on the control diet, and then boom, 3.5 pounds within 7 days after switching to keto. But what was happening inside their bodies told a totally different story. On the ketogenic diet, the rate of body fat loss slowed by more than half. So most of what they were losing was just water, but they were also losing protein. They were also losing lean mass. That may help explain why the leg muscles of CrossFit trainees placed on a ketogenic diet may shrink as much as 8% within 2 months, right? Exercise is supposed to make your muscles bigger, not smaller. Of course, look, even if keto diets work, the goal of weight loss is not to fit into a skinnier casket. People whose diets even tend to trend that way appear to live significantly shorter lives. On the other hand, even just drifting in the direction Even just drifting in the direction of eating more healthy whole plant foods is associated with living longer. Now, those going the opposite direction, though, those who start out plant-based but then add meat to their diet at least once a week, not only appear to double or triple their odds of diabetes and stroke and heart disease and weight gain, but also suffer an associated 3.6-year drop in life expectancy. That's going from no meat to just once a week meat or more. Low-carb diets have been shown to impair artery function and worsen heart disease. Whereas whole food plant-based diets have been shown to actually reverse heart disease, right? That's what Ornish used, right? So it appears to be the most effective weight loss diet, just so happens, to be the only diet ever proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients. Like if my grandma didn't have to die like that, maybe no one's grandma has to die like that. Right? If that's all a plant-based diet could do, reverse the #1 killer of men and women, shouldn't that kind of be the default diet until proven otherwise? In fact, it can also be so effective in preventing, arresting, reversing other leading killers like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure, which seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming. Only one diet has ever been shown to do all that, a diet centered around whole plant foods. So we don't have to mortgage our health to lose weight. The single healthiest diet also appears to be the most effective diet for weight loss. After all, permanent weight loss requires permanent dietary change. Oh, here's the remarkable reversal on a plant-based diet. Permanent weight loss requires permanent dietary change. I mean, healthier habits just have to become a way of life. And if they're going to be lifelong, you want them to lead to a long life. Thankfully, the single best diet proven for weight loss may just so happen to be the safest, cheapest way to eat for the longest, healthiest life. Thank you.